WeSTART session today. My name is Camille Baker. I am one of the partners in the STARTS ecosystem with the University for the Creative Arts in the UK. I'm professor of interactive and immersive arts at the University for the Creative Arts and one of the hosts for the WeSTART sessions that we've been running since a little over a year now. And today we have a community session, and we're super happy to welcome our colleagues from Qolony, and they will run most of the session today. I'll just do a brief introduction of what is Qolony, but before I do, I just want to ask if everyone's, oh, we've got it recording already, never mind. We know, just to mention, if people don't want to be, show their faces on the recording, just turn off your camera. We keep the recordings for our what do you call it, archive, I guess, on the STARTS EU page for any people who weren't able to make it and who want to see some of the amazing works and activities that are going on really around the globe, not just in Europe, around art and science, art and technology collaboration. So we welcome today Qolony, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, a non-profit organization based in Bucharest, Romania, that seeks to generate connections between art, science, and technology and believes that transdisciplinary practices are the cornerstone of developing innovative ideas. Qolony will share what they've learned in the 2 years since they pioneered creating their organization in a country where art science NGOs are effectively unheard of, and they will present their artisan residence program. And we are really excited to welcome Andrei Tudos, I hope I've said that right, Sabina Suru, and Floriana Kande, I hope I've said that right. Close enough, sorry. And they will talk about what they've been up to. And we're excited because we haven't made as many inroads into Eastern Europe as we would have liked to, but we hope to correct that with their help. So over to you folks at Qolony.
Thank you. So I will just make a brief introduction and talk a little bit about us very briefly, what we do as an organization and who we are. And then I will dive into a bit of a schedule for today, how we thought today's session will go. So as Camille said, we are Qolony. We're a quite young organization in Romania, which was built by Sabina and Floriana, first of all, and also Mihaela, who is in the audience. They are the founding members, the founding trio of this organization, because they are all very passionate about art and technology and science and how you can intertwine them, and felt the need to create a institutional, let's say, framework to develop this in Romania. There have been some initiatives in Romania. There's a couple of organizations working towards this, but it's still unclear for the general public what art and science is about. And I think that might be a very common issue for the entire Eastern part of Europe, at least. So how we ended up here is actually we're preparing a talks program, a conference program in the autumn, which we contacted STARTS about to be our partners in it. And with that, they were like, okay, wow, things are happening in Eastern Europe. Why don't you talk about them? So we said this would be a great time for us to share our experiences. We'll focus on mainly on our residency program, which is happening right now. It's the 2nd edition. And we would also like to talk a little bit of what we'll be doing in the conference program later this year. And at the end of the presentation, we will say what we've learned. We focused on 3 things that might sound pretty simple, but actually I think it's very important to think about them and to actually use them when you're trying to build an art and science initiative in Romania. And after that, I would like to, at the end of the meeting, I would like to invite everyone here to split into 2 or 3 rooms and just discuss on the things we learned, what else can everyone working in art and science do in order to grow the field. But we will go through each step at a time. And now I'd like to invite Sabina to talk about more about what we do.
Hi, everyone. So I guess you can see the presentation. Yes? No?
Yes.
Good. So basically, we are a very young organization. We have nearly 2 years. So after we finally existed on paper, we made a first session of brainstorming to decide what would be the best strategy to bring about the field of art and science in a country that is quite underrepresented in that field. And we decided that the best approach would be a residency program. It would be basically the best approach to create connections between artists, research institutes, cultural institutions, and at the same time, bring up the public awareness about this field, which was quite low. So we basically started contacting several research institutes, which was very interesting because they are beautifully open-minded people and far more willing to share their practice than we imagined. And as such, before the organization actually came about, our colleague Mihaela Ghiță had a pilot edition of this residency, which we decided to continue within Qolony, which happens in 4 research institutes on the Magrele platform, which is a place that hosts many research institutes. She invited 4 artists into one of each institute, and they worked with the researchers there. They were artists with quite diverse approaches. There were sound artists, installation artists, sculptors, and so on. And it was quite pleasant. So when the organization happens, we applied for some funding to continue the program. And so the second edition happened, which is currently ongoing. The artists are in residency right now. They are actually almost at the end of it. So what you have now on the screen is the breakdown of the program. We had to kind of bunk it into 4 months. And we started with a program of artists and scientists talks so that they can present to the public what they had in mind and what they wanted to do during their stay in the institutes. And when the residency actually started, the teams, artists and scientists, started to work on the research teams based on both their interests and starting to actually work together, although none of them have a lot of experience in that kind of collaboration. So it was very interesting to see how it developed further on into the experimental stage, where they worked with wet tissue or breaking down cells into sounds with laser technology, for example. And the upcoming is June, which will bring together the exhibition, but also several other events that are meant for the public as well. So they will have a final stage of talks to explain how they work together, how they found this kind of collaboration, share their results. We have planned a networking night so that this kind of collaboration can grow and incorporate more institutions, artists, research institutes, and so on. And this brings us to the challenges of this kind of project. Besides the fact that we are a young organization, me and Floriana, for example, we have a background in arts, so we don't have much experience in coordinating projects, management, and so on. So the first challenge was building up a functional team that could cover all the ground necessary for this kind of project, which brought us to started working with a satellite kind of network. So we started including in a team a network of satellites based on what they knew how to do and how we could help each other in the process. The second and big challenge was the infrastructure, because in a country like Romania, there is no legal infrastructure that standardizes this kind of collaboration between fields. You have an independent artist and a state institution, for example. So how do you make a contract between these? How do you regulate authorship between artists and scientists? And all that comes with this kind of displacement of legal functions. Then a second problem was public awareness, because since it's a new field, especially here in Romania, where it is indeed underrepresented, a very important element was to explain to the public not only what it means, but the innovation potential, create interest in this kind of field. And this we can do with more than just residencies. It needs bigger projects that kind of involves them actively. And this I will elaborate in a moment. And back to the legal infrastructure, which is actually bigger. It's also, for example, we had to, working on the contracts, even the lawyers that were involved had a lot of difficulties in creating a sort of a bridge that is functional in our legal system, but is also functional in what we needed to make things work in the project. And this brings us to satellite projects. I was telling you that the first step in our project was the residency program. So we decided that in order to actually grow the field, we needed to also grow what people knew art and science can be. So we worked on this project that we called Fusion Talks, which is a conference panel kind of project that brings about people from several countries, several fields, so artists, scientists, curators, philosophers, project managers from various organizations, and so on. And since we live in Corona time, we decided to do this online, and we went to the entire world basically. So we contacted people from everywhere, because online has this small advantage. So we broke the project into 4 panels that are thematic, with the plan of explaining what art and science is, what are the people involved in this field, who promotes it, and especially why to begin with. And in this purpose, we chose 2 keynote speakers in each panel, but eventually we will, basically each panel will have about 4 to 8 speakers that will not only present what they do, but they will also talk between each other. They will involve the public to actually be able to interact and explain more. And I believe now I will leave the stage for Andrei.
Sorry. So through all this process, which we presented very briefly because it was a nightmare to go through all the details, and it was very difficult to share them in such a short time, but we learned 3 main things, let's say. And go to the next slide, please. The first thing that we learned is that whenever you have no infrastructure, or you can think that things cannot happen in your country because I know there's no legal infrastructure, people are not prepared, you have no curators specialized in art and science, when you're trying to press release, for example, nobody understands what it's about. Those are roadblocks that we create ourselves. And we can just go the extra mile and create, we said UAE from bring your own device, but build your own infrastructure. If there's no legal infrastructure, that means you can create it. I mean, we spent countless hours talking with lawyers and tried to adapt how everything was, how everything we wanted to make it in terms of working with scientists and so on, and how can this be adapted to the local system. Talking about the general public, for example, in this project that we're running right now, the residencies, we thought that it's very important to educate the public. So besides the actual artworks, we will be creating sort of a art and science dictionary that documents the entire process, the entire creative process and the working process between scientists and artists and so on. So it's just like a roadmap for people to take and to understand what we're doing there. And this can apply to pretty much everything that we do, because especially in Romania, considering the civil precedent and the mix between art and science is basically unknown even to artists and researchers. This is a great opportunity for us to create this entire ecosystem. The second thing that that we've learned, okay. At first, we tried to do this pretty much alone. We thought nobody would be interested. We're way too young to attract a lot of people in this project that we're doing. But in time, we learned that if it takes two to tango in art and science, it takes a lot of more people. And for example, this is how I ended up in the Qolony project, because as Sabina said, they were artists. They do amazing art. They do an amazing job of talking with artists about. They do an amazing job talking about art and having a lot of creative ideas. But there was kind of a difficulty to actually implement them and make them happen. And I have a passion for art. I'm not an artist, or at least I'm not an artist yet, but I took everything I knew about project management and marketing and corporate strategy, let's say, and put it on the table to bring these projects alive. And we also went further and we found the lawyers, we found the communication people who maybe didn't have experience on actual art and science project, but they were passionate and they've seen it happening before. And then we went further, and this is, for example, how we ended up having this presentation here. Because, okay, let's grow bigger. Let's not stay only in Romania, and let's see how we can connect with others. And we contacted STARTS, for example. And this kind of networking is a real gift, let's say, that they're doing, and allows people from not only all over Europe, but actually the entire world to connect and learn from each other and see how we can bring all ideas to the table in order to make things happen and grow this field. And this takes me to the third point and the last one, which is bigger can be better. And we need to scale up and we need to think big. And even if it's a small field, if it's a country where art and science doesn't exist, that doesn't mean that we should start small. And this is what we've done, for example, with the talks program that we're scheduling right now, because we had this project in mind for quite some time. We had it planned before the corona outbreak, and we had it planned by having physical conferences, of course, which are nice. You can get to interact with people, have all the networking sessions face to face and so on. But it was also limiting because we had to budget people and we had to pay for travel, we had to pay for accommodation besides their fees. And of course, if you want to bring big names to such a conference, there's an issue because you will have to pay them for at least 3 days, for example. And once the corona hit and we postponed the project, we thought, okay, now we can do it online. Let's make it bigger. Let's have courage and contact the biggest names in the field and just expand the scope of the project and see what happens. And the response was amazing. I mean, I think 90% of all those who we contacted just said, "Whoa, it's an amazing opportunity. We would like to work together, and yeah, let's do it." So now with a fraction of the cost we had initially, we can just do something that is so much bigger. And these are just some examples of what we've done so far. These are just 3 things that we learned, but I think as basic and as simple as it may sound, they're really important to see how you can put in action. And before we move to the next stage of our meeting today, I'd like to ask you if you have any questions or any ideas or anything you want to put on the table. I see there's something in the chat.
There doesn't look like there's a question. It's more a statement so far, but yeah, maybe as we go on, we can get more questions.
Yeah, please feel free to ask us anything, either additional details about the projects or anything about our experience that might seem like we didn't talk enough during this very short presentation.
Are you going to talk about some of these upcoming events later on slightly more? Because it sounded like those might be interesting to the group as well.
You're talking about the talks program.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to keep the presentation short. We try
Sure.
to keep it
We
in
can do
30
that
minutes.
at
But
the
we can
end.
do it. We don't have a PowerPoint, but yeah, we can talk for sure.
Great. Okay, so are we ready to go on to the next stage? Do you want to suggest something, or I'll leave it to you kind of to lead this?
Okay, so the next stage would be to split. I would say to split into 2 rooms, if everyone's okay with that, and maybe work on ideas starting from these insights that we gathered. You know, from I would focus on going big, and I would focus on collaborations, because it's been mind-opening what we've done in the past year, and we found out a lot of stuff that we didn't think possible a while back. And I think having a community gathering and talking openly about other ideas of what we can do in order, not specifically us Qolony in Romania, but what an art and science organization can do in order to think bigger, in order to build better collaboration, how we can get outside the box, how we can develop the field by doing things that are not done in the regular way. I think that would really enrich the field overall. So if everyone is okay with that, maybe we can split into 2 rooms.
Great. Yep, I can just open the rooms now, and if anyone finds himself not in a room, just message in the chat, and I'll I'll try and assign you some.
I don't see a lot of interaction. I mean, do people want to do that? I mean, I see Sylvian. I'm sorry, I hope I am saying your name correctly. And not a lot of people, not a lot of faces, not a lot of voices here. But for the next part, you would have to be actively involved, and you would have to speak. And I just want to check if everyone is okay and willing to do that.
A thumbs up from Lily. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. And Sylvian turned on his microphone, so he's ready to talk.
Yeah, let's speak.
Or thank you, Catherine. Thank you.
Okay, so do you just want to talk about it here, or do you want me to open the breakout rooms?
I think we can do it here as well. I mean, since we're not so many people, and I don't think it would be a lot of chaos. And
you okay with that, Camille?
Yes, that's fine with me. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so if you three, Lily, Catherine, and Sylvian, were the flag bearers, let's say, among the public, can you please introduce yourselves very briefly, just to know what we're talking about?
Yeah, sure. I can start. So just to give you a few words, I am some French. I am working as a scientist in Bordeaux, at the University of Bordeaux. I am a side of my research I am involved into arts as well. Personally, I enjoy writing, collage and music. One I have as a backup of my mind for a long time, this idea to try to bond these two activities. So either personally or even why not to propose something to the institution, to the university here. So this is a bit why, in fact, I started to be into starts and to try to get ideas to meet people. I'm maybe at the different levels than you. I have maybe the same kind of both ambitions on problems. So I start more or less from zero, at least here in, not zero. Zero is it's a bit more than zero. But just, you know, I try to get ideas and to learn and to build a project, to get a network. And maybe I feel that to be, let's say, considered and to be taken seriously, I need to come out with not only a vague idea, but to propose some real projects that can be potentially, I would say, interesting for the city of Bordeaux, for my university, for the actors here, and then just to say if I have an ideal goal, it would be, because I've been working for a long time in Boston at MIT, and there they got what they call the MIT Media Lab, and then I got the chance to go there. It was not, I did not work there exactly, but not in this building. But I went there, and I found out actually that it would be for me like a kind of the Graal. If I could come out with a solid work project to propose here, to say, okay, this is more or less what I would like to do here in Bordeaux, having some Bordeaux Media Lab, where we could have a platform where artists, technologists, designers, scientists come and speak together. It would be, I think it would be a good thing. So I just in this process to learn how to do it, in fact. Okay, it was just to present myself.
Yes, it was you just opened the discussion of how we can do things bigger, and you gave that MIT example, and I think we'll go more in depth into that a bit later. But Lily or Catherine wants to start?
Yeah, so my name's Lily Hunter-Green. I'm an installation artist and a composer, and I work across disciplines. So I work with, my subject matter is really working with bees. I've been working with bees since 2014, where I converted a series of old pianos into working beehives, and then I composed using the sounds the bees were making whilst living inside the piano. I then moved on to building a much bigger project with bees. So I started creating a kind of interdisciplinary hive mind, where I collaborate with scientists from all scientists and artists and musicians and choreographers from different disciplines. So I work with molecular scientists and computer coders, for example, and I bring them into the same project under my kind of umbrella project with bees. So we work together to kind of come up with installations that communicate the science of the hive and the reasons why we're losing our pollinators. So I've been developing a long-term interdisciplinary project, and I've done residencies at Cambridge Uni in the science department. I'm about to start on another residency, long-term residency with a scientist based at Cambridge. An example of my work is where I essentially infected a piece of classical music with a virus that's killing the bees, working with changing the genome sequence into a computer code and ran it through classical compositions that I'd written. So it's my practice is very kind of, very cross-discipline, quite, I tend to bring together institutions, and it was just really interesting hearing you talk about the idea of being able to go bigger online. And I hadn't really, it's only now that I'm starting, throughout the pandemic, I've been kind of struggling with networking actually, because a lot of my opportunities, including residencies and all sorts of things, have come from personal engagement and being in that kind of environment. And unfortunately you haven't had that. And actually it's really interesting to see that you've been successfully doing it online. So that's just kind of a brief introduction, but that's my practice.
Okay, I'll come back to you later because I have a question for you about going bigger. But
Okay.
let's hear from Catherine.
Okay, hello. So I'm London-based. I work as sort of what's described as a creative scientist, but it's neither of those things. I was a scientist, and then I went to the creative arts. I was actually at drama school after being a neuroscientist. Then I sort of went back to UCL because I was setting up a BASc, a Bachelor of Arts in Science, and started working. There's the first in London, in England, like the first of it, truly interdisciplinary degree. And I started sort of as a byproduct, always connecting scientists and artists up, or I'd be working with a lot of artists and see that there was so much that they could learn from what was happening in labs but couldn't access, and vice versa. There were loads of scientists I was working with who could actually use artists and creativity to explore their work that they couldn't do behind the red tape of their funding application or their very sort of rigorous study that they were doing. So I set up a studio called Kind of Studios that sort of, rather than just connect these people, curated that process. And a sort of mission was to sort of accelerate inside out of the labs into the public domain through sort of creative collaborations. So for example, we've just been working with a visual art studio called Marshmallow Laser Feast, looking at their interest in actually, rather than just illustrating science, using science and what we know now about sort of how different visual elements affect the brain and engagement, to actually sort of take some of that science into the creative process. So we created a collaboration between some scientists in America and UCL and some different labs brought together, because as Lily mentioned, often the collaboration kind of needs more than one area of science because it is sort of transdiscipline within science. And sort of the ideal in these, for me, in these collaborations is that the artist gets to take their work into new realm, and the public get introduced somehow to that science. And then the scientists get to explore their work creatively. And there are lots of pitfalls, like languages are different, timelines are different. What you can do in the field doesn't often count as scientifically rigorous, but it's still valid. And what you can do in a lab is too refined to be actually put into creative process. So we've been really kind of feeling our way, but the appetite and eagerness when scientists and artists come together and it just excels their work on both sides is amazing, which is why I love communities like this, because it brings those people together, for people who actually get why it's important, rather than going, oh, that's weird and nice, and when it just comes naturally to all of us that's the only way to work.
I think that's a brilliant example of building an infrastructure for where there isn't, and making things work even if there's no regular way to do it, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that slide. I was like, yes, that's the way.
Okay. Anyone else?
Sorry,
Florian.
I think that's the way. It doesn't have to be, to have an infrastructure, especially if you're an artist, and probably also if you're other type of professionist. You can appreciate the liberty of trying a new way or a new path anyway. So I think that Lily was kind of right. The art, science, technology, all other professionals or professions, they're kind of like a hive. I mean, when they are put together, when people actually interact, there are always innovative ideas sparkling. So it's my observation.
Okay. Anyone else wants to introduce themselves? No pressure. Okay, until people make courage, I'll go back to Sylvain, because I think you come with an amazing experience from what you've seen at MIT, and I think it's really great that you have a science background and you are just starting, as far as I understood, you're just starting to move into the arts field. And I was curious, how would you see that from what you've learned at MIT, what kind of infrastructure you could build there at Bordeaux in order to grow your projects?
I mean, I don't know, just a kind of a crazy idea. First, I would say at first, maybe we don't need infrastructure. I just think that we can, for instance, just to give you an idea, I developed optical fibers here. I'm starting project with an artist from here, so we have some interactions. We just meet in the lab, or we just meet at a studio. But I just saw that this is one example of one project. But while I was working on this project with her, I saw that actually it would be even better if we got some kind of a platform. Or first, I thought of having a few floors in one building, you know, where people can meet. And then after, because I had this opportunity in the past to be in Boston and to see this entirely dedicated building, so I thought maybe why not think big, as you propose. You say, okay, let's think big, and then let's propose big, and then we will see what will come out at the end. So at the end, I just came out after maturing my project. I thought, why not just starting proposing something as big as MIT, because media, because maybe there are other kind of I would say platforms or institutions somewhere in the world that I don't know, but this is the maybe the best example, at least personally I know. This is the example I have in mind, where actually I saw that all people coming from very different backgrounds meet and work together. So this is how I came out with this idea, because I've been working in this building. Otherwise, I would even not have think of it.
So just create sort of an informal hub where people come together and bring together their ideas and see how they can put them into practice.
And in fact, to be honest, to go a bit further, in fact, I just thought that, because often, you know, to convince people around you, especially I would say funders or institutions, you need to come up either with very strong ideas, and then if it comes from strong institutions, they would say, okay, maybe it's a good idea because it's not just coming out from nowhere. Other people did it already, or not only random people, but big institutions. So I just found that actually it would be for me a good example of to use. And then if I go, you know, even I just observed that if I need some inspiration for my work, for my art, for whatever, often I go on MIT Media Lab website, and I just scroll down randomly, and almost every time I come out with new ideas. So I just found out that only their website is very impressive. So I just saw that having, let's say at my scale here, proposing something going in that direction, having a very inspiring website, and maybe a few rooms dedicated to meet, to allow the people to meet. Actually, it would be a nice achievement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically have a way to showcase what everyone is working on and inspire others.
Yeah, and I feel that just behind my own activity as a scientist, as an, let's say, an amateur artist, I feel that it would be a nice achievement too, is to create some motion around me, so that the people, they can meet and they can brainstorm together. This is the way I try to engage myself in this direction.
But
Catherine, you put your hand up. Catherine's got her hand up.
Oh, I did, yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, I would say that I really like that point about like going to the other for inspiration, because I think so often everyone's really busy, everyone's working different time scales, and like creatives have like briefs they've got to fill, you know, for themselves, other people, and scientists have to get experiments done. And something that myself and the colleagues of mine who works in the BAC started before the pandemic, and we were going to have as events, was we started with dinner parties and finding the questions that people were asking. Someone would come to us with a question, like a scientist they're trying to solve, or creative, and they would find people from all the different disciplines who were asking that same question and bring them together. And it was amazing because everyone was like, oh my God, I didn't know that an artist could give me inspiration on that question, or could be working on the same question. And we were going to have like events, almost like speed dating events, where we'd have a question like, you know, investigating you know, like pollinators, or I'm looking into how, you know, sound can affect my well-being or something, and then just do this, like get people from the arts and the sciences together, because then they realize that they've both got something to offer the other person and gain from the other person. When we were going to set it all up, then of course there was the pandemic, and like we could have done it digitally, to be fair, and like you say, doing it digitally would also mean that you could have a bigger, more global audience as well. And I think now we're better at using stuff like Zoom to brainstorm. But yeah, I was thinking like start with a question. It's amazing who else, and then go as far as you can to find the most random person asking it as well. Then it's always like really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think somehow this is the part of the point of these community gatherings. I mean, just to get to know each other and come up with new ideas and inspiration. And I'll go back to what Lily was saying about how the online part and thinking bigger was an eye opener for her. And I would ask, what does this actually mean for your project? What ideas did you have? What were you missing? And now you came to think about it when going online or eliminating or restrictions.
As I said, it's literally, I mean, I haven't even explored that avenue very much yet. I'm just saying that in general, like I personally am somebody that really relies on kind of, well, I actually feed on human kind of conversation. And I think that a lot of my inspiration has come from like meeting random people at different events. And so I also work part-time at Barbican Centre, and I work a lot of kind of information points and things. And I do it because it's a really great point of meeting other creative people. And throughout the pandemic, I spend a lot of time talking to other artists and meeting, as I said, like-minded people. And I think that building this kind of, as I said, this hive mind, this superorganism of different kind of people has been by default, just by like, not coincidence, it's just been, they've been serendipitous meetings that have just been because I'm so passionate about my subject or the bees or whatever, I end up finding myself in a situation where I can sort of enthuse people. And then, as I said, that has been kind of a chain reaction of luckily for me, it has moved me into getting these great residencies in brilliant labs. And then, as I said, that has sparked another scientist to contact me or vice versa. That has, you know, I've genuinely navigated my way via networking and collaboration. And, you know, and it's really interesting because, as I said, in terms of having to do this stuff online now, I'm faced with new challenges. I'm currently collaborating with they're 9 to 19-year-old young female coders on a project where we're programming drones to imitate social behavior of bees. And we're working on it, but it's been a really difficult collaboration because everything has had to be online. You know, we've had to have Zoom workshops, we've had to have them on camera and the drones here with me. And like, it's been really difficult to navigate. But I guess I've had a couple of them. I mean, probably only in the last like 3 months have I started to attend these things online. And actually, I know Catherine, but by coincidence as well, who's just been speaking. We've come up in the same situation. It's
really nice. It shows the community works. I was like, oh, there's Lily, there's Anna. This is great.
No, it's just like a complete coincidence. But it's been really nice recently, obviously attending the Clubhouse event we did the other day, you know, having these conversations and already, I mean, I thought that was a great, have you heard of the platform Clubhouse, Andre? Do you know Clubhouse?
That's the app for the iPhone thing.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a new trendy thing now.
Yeah, it was another great way of like, you know, everybody can get past the mic, and it's another online platform to get people talking to each other. And I, you know, those kind of things I'm finding are really, really useful because they're keeping you connected. And again, as I said, I only signed up to this because I saw it online and I just thought it looked really, really interesting. And obviously I looked into your gallery, and then the name Qolony, obviously. Is that to do, did you choose the Qolony name for colony of bees or for a colony of
colonizing the art world with science?
Great. Guys, yeah, really like drawn towards that. And again, like turning up at these things has been really good. And I haven't worked out how yet, but I love the idea of, you know, as I said, I've built this hive mind, I've got all my collaborators, but it's so difficult to get them all in one place. So I've had to sort of section it off to be like, okay, so I've got 3 of my collaborators working on this project, and then I've got 2, like a social scientist and a choreographer on a different project. But having a platform, like an online platform, would be a brilliant way to get everybody together, my kind of superorganism, all kind of trying to save the bees together on one thing, you know. It's and again, it is that global reach as well. I've been able to give talks in Michigan here, which I would never have been able to attend before, but it's just really interesting, the use of this. But again, as I said, it's something I'm only having this realization after the dark ages of COVID, just sort of hanging around being like, well, I'm not going to get anywhere with not being able to collaborate from home. But yeah, I mean, that's why I'm here for advice as opposed to a huge amount of kind of wisdom on this subject.
I don't know if you noticed in the chat, Anna Dimitri said, it's interesting to say Qolony when decolonizing is something most people are talking about now. I just thought I'd pose that.
Well, I think we see Qolony not as a verb, as to colonize something, actually, but rather as bringing people together and building bridges and creating something from almost nothing. You know, that's the way Qolony should go. Not about colonizing and all the bad meaning of the word, going into a new territory and changing everything, but rather building from the ground up.
Yeah, I believe we saw it as a way of gathering people into a self-acknowledged community that works like a colony rather than invading a foreign territory and taking it over.
I get that.
We have a lot of action from someone named S+T+ARTS Veterans Mission, with a long rest of that number, who's made a lot of interesting comments. Perhaps we can bring that person in to say something. Or not.
Still chatting in the chat, but not.
Yeah.
That's okay. There is a completely different thing going on in the chat. So, you know,
Connor, I see you've joined us with your camera.
Yes, sorry, I've just got home. I was on the bus before, so now I am here.
Glad to see you. Do you want to introduce yourself and maybe add something to the discussion, or?
Yeah, my name is Connor. I'm quite new to the START community as a whole, so I'm still discovering everything that it has to offer. And yeah, I'm not an artist or anything. I don't have a thing yet. I graduated last year, so still finding myself.
It's okay, I feel you. in the exact same place. But I think it's nice that people who don't have a lot of experience getting into this kind of discussions can bring things that people who are oversaturated in the art world might not see or might miss. So,
well, that's the point of these sessions. You know, it's for the community, and the community spans a huge, you know, range of people. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I mean, what we're trying to do is make a community of communities, a network of networks. So we're continually trying to find new people all over the place. And like Andre said, you know, keep growing this larger, maybe it's like little nodes and little hives, as Lily maybe put forward, but to bring these hives together, because we do much better if we can find each other and connect to each other and share with each other than if we're all in kind of little bubbles and not aware of what else is happening.
Can I just jump in here? I've been a little more passive this meeting, but I've been to another start, and my name is Martin Q. I run a culture incubator in Botkyrka, south of Stockholm in Sweden. And I'm also in another net, because I got hooked when you talked about other networks. I'm also project manager for a network of culture incubators in Nordic and Baltic countries. So we are about 11 incubators who have met quite regularly for maybe 6-7 months now. And I'm also passionate about cross innovation and using artistic methods and processes in other fields of society, for example, in science and technology. And so I've been trying to follow the STARTS things, and I will definitely continue to follow as many of them as I can. Do you know of any STARTS hubs in Northern Europe?
I think that's another area that we've been slow to penetrate, but I think there are bits and bobs. It depends if you're more focused on the art side. I mean, we've got subcategories of groups as well within STARTS, because there's some that are much more arts focused, like the residencies projects and the STARTS prize people who are, and then there are the projects, and of course it's not just our projects, obviously we're linking to all these other projects, but just from the point of view of us having sort of umbrella larger group, and then these sort of sub areas or subtopics. So we've had a lot of energy around wearable technology and sustainable fashion, and then some others focused on things around architecture and VR. And now we're getting, so there's sort of a art side and a design side, I guess you could say, and the design and innovation. I mean, we have to be frank that a lot of this initiative came from the proposition that artists can catalyze innovation by working with and being acknowledged for their innovative ideas within technology domains or within science domains. And that's how the STARTS kind of got kicked off, and has ultimately been funded through Horizon, well, it was 2020, and now it's in future projects will be Horizon Europe. And so it is still being funded from the point of view of this idea that artists catalyze innovation, and they need to be embedded more deeply into science and technology activities, but also that collaboration instigates or creates new possibilities that wouldn't happen without it. So it needs to be said that there is still a root in I wouldn't say business per se, but in this idea that it will stimulate the economy and innovation. So we have to be, honest about that. But what's been very amazing and telling is that artists are so keen to be in this space and doing wonderful things. And so in fact, we need more scientists and more technology experts to come into the space. We have a lot of hybrids, which is another term that we've been using, people who cross both sides. So that's really amazing as well. That's enough from me. Just wanted to clarify some of that.
Yeah, and in my experience, that you need to have a meeting at eye level, so it needs to be equally important for the science and technology to have the artistic processes as for the artists to be involved in this, and to have a mutual respect and discover things together.
Yeah, exactly.
And my experience is also that this very rarely happens by itself. It usually needs sort of facilitator or facilitation, and as an incubator it comes very in handy. So there is actually a need for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we developed what we're calling a collaboration toolkit, but also in our STARTS ecosystem, that's who I'm part of, but also one of the other projects, STARTS Residencies, developed a methodology of collaboration, and we give those resources away freely, but we also encourage other organizations and what we're calling intermediaries like yourself, Martin, to help us make that better, and help us spread the word, and help us reach those hard to reach technology experts and scientists to come and join us.
Yeah, and your toolkit is really, really good. I've studied it.
Oh, that's
deeply.
Good feedback. Thank you. Good.
Oh, yes.
I'll share that with all the people who put it together.
So, but if you want to have a focus in the Nordic or Baltic countries in the future, please let me know. And
well, we will. Lucy will get your details, and we will, for sure. This is what this is about. So absolutely.
So should I send my email to Lucy?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
I'd probably have it as you registered, but yes, that would be great.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Yes.
You have it already, right?
Yeah.
It's awesome to be here.
Thank you so much, Martin. And we have also our, I guess, Chris Werenen, who's been commenting in the chat, also giving his information.
Oh, thank you, Chris. That's great.
Yeah. Did you want to say anything, Chris? I saw your
Sure.
face.
Yes, hi. Of course, we know in the USA here we have, it's kind of maybe it's a burden. Capitalism is a burden for artisans. It's very hard to compete against slave labor, manufactured goods. So for artisans, they need a bridge that could include apprenticeship in all the different old trades and then the new science tech trades. That's something we're interested in providing as a, say, as a an apex point for veterans. They can access their GI Bill, and if that model works, then anybody could join. You know, it's a reality check on the paradigm that's changing, which is artisans should be rewarded for great ideas rather than a big corporation's going to buy them out. You'll never hear about that again. And that goes from everything from energy to creating textiles from hemp. and we all know the history of hemp. And that probably was the US history in hemp was because there's a competition for paper and cotton. So it was eradicated. 70 years of moratorium on growing hemp. So now that whole industry has to change and not based on perhaps profit motivation, purely capitalism. It should be based on a different model. So we do have academics at Central State University that are helping us in the growing portion. And then we have sponsors interested in the process manufacturing to create the volume of materials. So say artisans have access to affordable materials to create everything from new fibers for creating cars and flying cars, anything they want, rather than steel. Steel is not an eco-friendly material, and it's old and archaic. Maybe you don't agree, but fiber can be grown and turned into a resource, and that could be just one genesis of a new industry. Thoughts?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that we like to see, is that there's like this interesting left field kinds of ideas, and then people find other people to, I mean, it's not necessarily left field, but my point is coming from a place you wouldn't otherwise think of as art or necessarily or something that doesn't fit in as science or technology on the surface, but actually is a catalyst for really major change or innovation. So that's great. And if there's if you want to reach out to the rest of the community, it's something that you have in mind, or some of your veterans have in mind that want to connect with some of the rest of the people in the STARTS community or the Qolony community, or both, definitely Lucy will keep your email and get in touch about that.
Sure, and we want to be a global, connection. So instantaneous live feeds. So crossing back and forth, somebody in Pakistan's doing something similar to us, and it's let's pollinate, create new innovation rather than we're under somebody's control to monetize that and to regulate that. Yeah. So artisans should be free of that. They should be liberated, and then if they want to mass produce it, that's great. If they don't, then that's great too.
I think what we focus on, it doesn't mean that there isn't some energy going toward, if people want to make some money or make a business of their outcomes or their innovations, that we help to nurture that. But I think the ultimate focus is coming up with the innovation in itself, and that brings, not necessarily in an academic sense, but it brings new knowledge to the world that then can be built upon and developed further in different ways. So I think we're coming from the point of view of making new ideas and changing, like you and Lily's talking about this idea of bees and pollination. That's the point. And then, if it makes sense that something can be used to make, a business proposition, then that's important as well.
Sure, and if we can attract like minds, artisans should be surrounded by, let's say, eco-friendly sponsorship. So so they can be creative, but not burdened by budgets, and leave that to people who see those artisans as values and not tradable values.
Yeah, I think that's the model difference. I think like I was trying to say this in the chat. I think there is a slightly different emphasis in the US where artists and designers, or artisans, like you say, are kind of used as commodities, like you say, or somehow a knowledge resource, as opposed to independent entities that have much to give. So it is a different perspective, and it's nice to find ways to bring other perspectives from other parts of the world together and find new ways to grow as a community, but also to contribute. I think the new agenda, what we've seen, the new agenda, both from the European Commission, from the point of view of us starting some of this, or perpetuating, I wouldn't say starting, but perpetuating some of this art science, art technology interaction, is now coming from a new agenda, which is this idea of the new Bauhaus, which is kind of taking an old idea and trying to communicate newness through this older idea. But I think it's really the concept they're trying to portray is this idea of transformation, and how the arts are part of that transformation of society. And then the other one is trying to further any new projects that are funding out there that are focused on the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and how those, particularly around Green New Deal and things like that, but more focus on climate crisis issues, and how artists and how others can be involved in that, and the solutions. And what we really try to say in STARTS is that we all need to make work that is addressing real world problems, but artists are not always only focused on making beautiful artworks. They're also addressing real world issues, just from a different standpoint. So I'd like to shut up. Who else wants to talk? Over to you, Andre and Qolony.
I think we're definitely running over time at the moment. But...
Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. I mean, it's great that it's been a dynamic discussion, even if we're so few. I'd like to invite everyone, if you have any further questions for us, because people are already leaving for other meetings, you can contact us via Facebook. You can find us in STARTS post, or via email. You'll find everything in the presentation. And Lucy, I guess you'll post the recording online as well.
We will, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much to everybody.
So much. Yeah, thank you, Andre and Qolony, and thank you everyone who showed up. Hello, Anna.
See you. Thanks.
Nice to meet you, Sylvain, and Lily, and Catherine, and everyone else who came. See you next time.
Thank you so much for joining, everyone.
I hope we get together again soon.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
See you.
All right.
See you later.
Bye.